It's a pleasure to appear for the Festival of Friendship, and the poems that I've chosen in one way or another deal with friendship, beginning with the friendship with students and then the kind of frank friendship that we all should have with one another. The first student poem is called An Open Letter to a Closed Mind. I make too much of it, this matter of books and talk and silences. But every sun I stand less sure of what I ought to know and find my way to them to find my way. Wisdom's rabbit races just far enough ahead to keep the chase invitingly close, but never done. And all I really know is what occurs to me right here as right. Moments of truth come anywhere, at once. Facing the jewelry of bottles, twiced by mirrors, fanned behind a downtown lounge in Minneapolis, I understood a verse from Crane's Wine Menagerie without intending it. The meaning simply came, like that, like one of God's gratuities that come before we are prepared. Of all I ever worked to learn, those things are best that came to me without my earning them. I should have said without deserving them. In Minneapolis, a deeper thinker surely would have called all truth a gift, but it was hot, and I forgot. Later, when students let me tell them what I knew, I saw that all we keep of truth is what we give away. That holocausts can sleep like revolutions in the smallest flints. That any river can reflect the sun. I have a student's fear that truth is fun to seek, but death to keep. Heroes and saints are those who freed the thoughts of God by pen or tongue and made them last like Parthenons. I bleed the lambs of glory for those few who said that time must wait their christening. Once within their presence, words take flesh, and God wakes fires that can rock the skull and blaze the eye with revelation. This poem is a more recent poem, and it deals with a kind of friendship that really can't be defined. It only can be recognized. It's called The Less Said, the Better. And the epigraph to the poem is an old Arab proverb. Love comes to men through the eye, to women through the ear. The less said, the truer. The epigraph, as I said, is love comes to men through the eye, to women through the ear. When Cyrano proclaimed his passion for Roxanne, he stood in the shadows. Seated on her balcony, she barely saw the man, but loved what she heard. All those who say that love is based on age, height, religion, status, worth, or race are talking mergers, not marriage. The man a thoughtful woman allows to enter her body needs more qualifications than these. It's what she hears or sees in his eyes that matters to her. For lack of an alternative, call it the language of the heart. Bill's wife-to-be spoke only Japanese. He felt what she meant, and their 30 years together prove it. Taller than Faisal by half a foot, Nuha left Syria to marry him because she liked the look in his eye. When Anne met Pamela's French fiancé, she told her, I'd marry him if I had to live in a sewer. Although her mother disapproved, Rebecca insisted, "I'm not marrying my mother." 10 anniversaries later, she pleaded with guests, "Please, be nice to my mother." What else but love explains why Trish mounted a Harley-Davidson with Mark, who steered it after midnight through the rain from Pittsburgh to Washington with just one stop. In order to prevail, love challenges risk. Deny that at your peril. This is Friendship at a Distance. It's called Florence by Proxy. I read an anecdote that the great German poet Goethe was very impressed with Florence. He never got over it. But he was there so briefly that it's almost unbelievable. Florence by Proxy. October's ochre changes everything to Italy. Sun-painted walls remember villas near Fiesole. I've never seen Fiesole. Someday I will, and it will seem a memory of noon in the United States, when I became a Florentine because the sun bewildered me. Who among the Florentines is listening? Who else but me, who sees in the Italians the human race that Goethe saw? Today their cops are commodores, their Fiats weapons and their whizzing duels on the road, their shoes and gloves the very renaissance of calf. Tribal to the death, they swear by their mothers, breastfeed their sons wherever, prefer their pasta 3/4 cooked, and sing whatever, whenever. Mistaken for Italian half my life, I'm of the tribe. If it's Italian to speak in tears before goodbyes, I qualify. If it's Italian to choose tomatoes one by one, I qualify. If it's Italian to laugh when no one else is laughing, or to whistle at the wheel, I qualify. One murmur in Italian soothes the Florentine in me that French confuses, German contradicts, and Spanish misses by a hair. One murmur, and I feel what Goethe felt when Florence wounded him with Italy for life, though Goethe spent not quite 3 hours there. Now from Italy to Ireland. Fortunately, Ireland has long since recovered from its Jansenism that declared at that time, the flesh was evil. And it gave rise to a very puritanical religion of Catholicism in Ireland. And at the same time, it produced a lot of heavy drinking. The real reason for going is not just to get there. Killarney's maps are for the unredeemed. The hidden land awaits the stumblers and the temporarily confused who find their destinations as they go. In Dingle, there's a history bone final as the faith that founded Gallerus. All that remains is what was there when Gallerus began: God, man, sheep, and stone, and stone, and stone. Dingles ago, the starvers saw their lips turn green from chewing grass before they famished in their beds. Their hovels bleached like tombs unroofed and riven by the sea. If only all the stones were beige or marble white. Their fading grays seem unforgiving as a fate that only wit or tears or immigration can defeat. Sheep graze over graves. Loud gulls convene on garbage dumps. In Galway, Cashel, and Tralee, I fish the air for what it is that makes the Irish Irish. Is it Seamus quoting Sweeney's prayer in Howth and telling me of Hopkins the convert buried in Glasnevin? Is it how it sounds to sing the music in a name? Skibbereen, Balbriggan, Kilbegan, Bunratty, Listowel, Duncannon, Fermanagh, and Ballyconneely. As a Joyce's map of metaphors that makes all Dublin mythical as Greece. Is it cairns of uniambic and unrhyming rocks transformed by hand into the perfect poem of a wall? Is it the priest near death who whispered, "Give my love to Roscommon," and the horses of Roscommon? Is it because the Irish pray alike to Pope John Paul, our Bishop Eamon, and Ned O'Toole, late of Moycullen? Inside God's house or out, their sadder smiles say the world, if given time, will break your heart. With such a creed, they should believe in nothing but the wisdom of suspicion. Instead, they say, please God, and fare ahead regardless of the odds, to prove that life and God deserve at least some trust, some fearlessness, some courtesy. These poems are two ballads. The first one epitomizes a basic American belief. It's a false belief, but a lot of people base their lives on it. They work only so that they can retire. So the philosophy is, you work so you never have to work. This poem is called The Ballad of the Jolly Broker. Nothing was surer amid all the furor than watching a stock that I picked on a hunch make rich men of paupers and paupers of fools, and all in the pinch that it took to eat lunch. My betting and cheering took real engineering. I guessed and I gauged and I bet and I prayed, from the dawn of the bull to the dusk of the bear, where fortunes were waiting and fortunes were made. The law of percents is a law that resents whenever its buyouts are less than a steal. Its language is money, and money is lethal, and all that makes sense is the luck of the deal. You have to like poker to be a good broker. You have to take chances and hope for the best. Buy cheap and sell dear is the law of the market, and woe unto those who forget or protest. Like any good broker, I like to play poker. But poker's a game where all that you've got is the lure of the cards and the stack of the chips and the dice of the deal and the pay of the pot. I took all my winnings, that some call my sinnings, and lived like a king where the snow never fell. I drank all my juices and swallowed my pills and bet on the races, and down came hell. It cost me my wife in the prime of my life. It made me content with much less than the best. I worked for the day when I never would work. And the money was sure, and the honey was rest. If you'd rather be healthy than feeble and wealthy, if you'd rather be happy than wed to a bed, then think of a man with a millionaire's tan, who died half a lifetime before he was dead. This poem is called The Ballad of the Broken Tackle, and it, even though I watch football, I'm inured to it, I've come to the conclusion that it's a bad game. And I played it, I coached it, but all you have to do is look at the injuries of people, head injuries, leg injuries, face injuries, to know that the good of the player is not the good of in baseball, for example, violence is abhorrent. I mean, anybody who engages in that is fined or pulled off the field or kicked out of baseball. But in football and in hockey, that's not the case. Violence is the essence of the sport. This poem is called The Ballad of the Broken Tackle. If you're squat as a rock and know how to block, and the backs that you block for are shifty, you can dream of a life with a Hollywood wife and a ranch you'll own outright at 50. But the jackpots of fame and your love of the game never match what you learned as a player. You crouch in the dirt, and you play when you're hurt, and you wake up one day, and you're grayer. Though nobody sees when you're gone on the knees, so you flinch when you're running or bending, you feel in your heart that you're coming apart, and you know when you're reaching the ending. Jim Otto would glow in the big 00 on the jerseys he wore in his glory. Today, he needs care, and he's wheeled in a chair, and that's just one man and his story. Look hard at the rest of the worst and the best, and notice how much they're reliant on braces and canes and some pills for their pains that have left them subdued and defiant. The owners ate well while we sweated like hell to give the old city a reason to light up the sky like the 4th of July at the end of our winningest season. Looking back, you can see it's no bonus to be number one in a league of achievers. It just rouses the loud in the stadium crowd and the rest of the paying believers. Overlooking the noise, it's a game meant for boys. At its best, it's no more than a pastime. But why were there tears, despite all the cheers, when you limped off the field for the last time? These next three poems are about women. In almost all instances, the better gender. The better gender. And I'm not going to romanticize it. I just think there are things of which men are capable, bad things, of which women are incapable on a broad scale. War being the primary one. The bodies of women. Some say they just reflect the nightly love of the sea and the moon. But life and physiology have never rhymed. Think of the squat queen who tranced Mark Antony and Caesar with her looks to become all Egypt to them both. Or dancers who have spines like spears and walk as if mere walking were a dance. Or nurses in their white, sure, soft shoes, nimble as prancers in motion, and just as self-possessed. Such poise and prowess is the stuff of mystery. And mystery it is. What else but mystery imbues a woman of stature to subdue a mob with nothing but a stance or a stare? or tells why men or countrymen can languish with their goddess gone. Learning of Piaf's death, Cocteau decided not to live. For what? For a lifelong waif whose voice was France for half a century. And what of Kulthum, who stilled the Arab world each time she sang, and drew 4 million to her funeral? And what of Marilyn Monroe, whose public grows and grows? Is this bewitchery? Or is it something that will never have a name? Or does it simply mean that women live within their bodies to the end and past the end? Not so for men, who seem to leave their bodies as they age, treating what was once an instrument as now a thing of no or little use. For those whose destination is themselves, what are such failings but a nuisance, not a destiny? Compared to love or happiness or children, they appear at best as vanities. See for yourselves. The eyes of any woman say it takes more bravery to be and bear than to beget. Or finally, just be, with no defenses, no illusions, no regrets. This poem deals primarily with two women for two different reasons. It's called A Toast for the Likes of Two. Who was it said, if women had mustaches, they would somehow make them beautiful? Look what they've done with breasts. Who disagrees? Doesn't the Bible say a woman just an inch from death will keep an eye for color? And don't philosophers conclude that women sacrifice the ultimate on beauty's altar, or love's? Why scoff at that? Are the male gods of money, fame, and power more deserving? What's money but guilt? What's fame but knowing people you will never know will know your name? What's power but pride translated into force? Are these worth more than what preserves us to the end? Consider Bertha, 80, blind, and diabetic. She believed that death's real name was Harold. I want to know what Harold has to offer, she would say. She'd seen her children's children's children and believed she had a poet's right to give a name to death, if so she chose. So laughing, she rocked and waited for this last adventure in her life. And then there was Jane, who mothered 7 and left unfinished all her art by choice, as if to prove that incompleteness is the rule of life, where nothing ends the way it should or when. 2 weeks before her funeral, she called all 7 to her bed to say, I hope to see you all again, but not right away. So here's to the honor of Bertha, and here's to the glory of Jane. May they be spoken of wherever beauty's lovers gather to applaud the beauty of love. May they not rest in peace, but thrive in everlasting action, doing what they love the most. Who wants a heaven that's equivalent to one long sleep? Those cryptid supine saints in their basilicas can keep the dream of their Jerusalem. The soul was meant for more than that. Pray for us, Saint Bertha. Pray for us, Saint Jane. This is a somewhat lighter poem. It's called One-Liners or Less. What made Elizabeth say, "I'm not attractive to men"? Or Patty claim, "My brother is so good, he's boring"? Or Dolores in her 80s say, "I want more birthdays, but I don't want to celebrate them"? Or Barbara, once divorced, concede, "The world is run by couples." Such frankness in women makes the truth less abrasive if faced when needed. And there's a lighter side as well. Watching his wife peruse the mail in her underwear, he said, "Suppose a strange man walked in here." Without pausing to look up, she said, "You are a strange man." After the party crasher insulted his French hostess by saying, "Your meal was fit for a pig," she smiled a Parisian smile and said, "So glad you felt at home." But Marilyn Monroe outdid them all. Asked if she had something on when Joe DiMaggio proposed, she said with grave innocence, "Well, the radio." The shorter the phrase, the keener the wit. The keener the wit, the surer the touch. The surer the touch, the purer the art that knows when one word more would be a word too much. These two concluding poems deal with, I guess you'd say, life's conclusions. One is called Suspended Sentence. A clean slice through the neck of a rooster separates the head from the body. Beheaded, the rooster runs in circles, flapping its wings, until it realizes that it's dead already and dies for good. Between the first and second death, transition. Asked how it felt to be 94, Ted responded, "Ask somebody else. I died 10 years ago." When Bronco was told that he had 3 months to live, he demanded, "Which 3?" When an actor turned 100 on his deathbed and was asked what words he wanted spoken at his funeral, he said, "Surprise me." Such testaments exist, but none can match the silence of Lazarus. Apart from Christ, Lazarus alone died and returned, and no one but Lazarus was doomed to face death twice. The rooster in him should have balked at such a fate, unless he glimpsed between the first and second death some preview of the afterlife that ended all his fears. Why did he keep that to himself? And a final poem called "And the Time Is." We've come to the point of decision, and the hands of the clock say, be careful. We've learned from the past that our choices are one or the other, and the hands of the clock say, be careful. We've readied ourselves for the challenge of weighing the odds and the chances of what will result from our choices, and the hands of the clock say, be hopeful. We're not what we were when we started, and the hands of the clock say, it's over. Our yesterdays lengthen like shadows that fade when we no longer cast them, and the hands of the clock say, it's over. Despite what it brings to surprise us, we treasure each day in its passing, though we know that we pass as it passes, and the hands of the clock say, discover. We sit on the porch every evening, and the hands of the clock say, be watchful. We study the leaves in their turning, from green to vermilion to purple, and the hands of the clock say, be watchful. While we stare at the sky and its vastness and name every star in the distance, we dwindle to scale in the balance, and the hands of the clock say, be grateful. The dead come to life in our dreaming, and the hands of the clock say, remember. The words of a prophet keep haunting the ones who ignored him when living, and the hands of the clock say, remember. The world that we think is around us is neither before nor behind us, but always within us. Within us. And the hands of the clock say, forever.